Okay, let's start with a number that completely rewrites what we think is actually possible for the human body. 95,119. Right now, that is the exact number of centenarians, meaning people over 100 years old, currently living in Japan. It's a staggering figure, especially when you contrast it with life back in the 1900s. Back then, the average life expectancy was just 32 years old. Now, we usually just credit modern medicine for doubling or tripling our lifespan, but historical data shows the first massive jump in human longevity was actually caused by plumbing and sanitation engineers. Cleaning up city sewage eradicated the childhood diseases that skewed that average lifespan down. So medicine absolutely extended our years later on, for sure, but it begs a major question about how we achieve true, long-lasting health today. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are going to dive deep into 18 scientifically proven, incredibly practical secrets to extending not just your lifespan, but your health span. We're basing this all on Dr. Eric Berg's deep dive into global longevity hotspots and cellular biology. And look, we aren't just talking about how to tack on a few extra miserable years at the end of your life on life support. We are looking at exactly how to build a resilient, high-functioning body that actually thrives for a century. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover the true longevity paradigm, secrets from centenarian hotspots, optimizing your metabolic engine, the power of hormesis, and mastering sleep and muscle.
Section 1. The true longevity paradigm.
Our first pillar here really challenges the very foundation of modern healthcare. We have to question the modern medical approach of simply keeping people alive versus actually optimizing their existence. On one side, you've got managing disease. This is the standard model, right? Prescribing beta blockers for blood pressure or antacids for reflux. It doesn't actually fix the root cause. It merely suppresses symptoms, keeping you dependent on drugs. Sure, it might extend your life, but often at the cost of your quality of life, potentially ending up at a nursing home on life support. Now, the true goal is creating health. This is about actively building what's called a fitness reserve. This means optimizing your VO2 max, which is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use during exercise. And, by the way, a phenomenal predictor of longevity. When you build this reserve, your metabolism becomes incredibly flexible, your hormones remain sensitive, and you have the physical capacity to truly enjoy life. Section 2. Secrets from centenarian hotspots. Now, what's really interesting is when we leave theory behind and look at real-world proof. When we directly compare standard American habits to Japanese habits, a totally stark contrast emerges. In Japan, children are legally mandated to be taught food and nutrition by actual dietitians who aren't heavily influenced by the junk food industry. While Americans are eating highly refined industrial wheat starches that are often sprayed with herbicides, the Japanese are consuming less refined non-GMO rice. On top of that, the average Japanese citizen takes over 6,000 steps a day, compared to the American 4,000. And crucially, while Americans buy a lot of hydroponic vegetables grown in water, the Japanese consume soil-grown vegetables and fermented foods. Those act as powerful natural probiotics for the gut. Let's actually break down those Japanese dietary staples a little further. They eat a lot of fermented soy, which happens to be one of the best sources of vitamin K2 in the world. This doesn't just fortify your bones, it actively prevents calcium from building up in your arteries. They also consume seaweed, bringing in a massive 9 times the American intake of iodine, plus a huge blend of vital trace minerals. And here is a super vital insight. While the Japanese actually consume more salt than Americans, they eat a high-potassium diet, think leafy greens and avocados, to perfectly balance that sodium out, which protects their blood pressure. Add to that the cancer-preventing phytonutrients of green tea, and you basically have a nutritional fortress. But it's not just what they eat, it's how much. The Japanese practice the 80% rule. They simply stop eating when they feel about 80% full. I mean, think of your cells like little power plants. When you cram way too many low-quality calories into that metabolic engine, you literally damage the mitochondria. Overeating depletes your nutrients and basically sets you up for a metabolic disaster down the road. So next time you sit down for dinner, ask yourself if you're eating to fuel your cells or if you're just needlessly overloading the engine. Okay, now prepare to be surprised by this number, 323.9. That is the number of pounds of meat an average person in Hong Kong consumes every single year. We're talking mostly pork and beef. Yet, Hong Kong frequently rivals or even beats Japan in longevity metrics. This completely shatters the myth that longevity is strictly tied to a vegetarian or blue zone plant-only diet. Hong Kong residents pair this meat with high seafood intake, tons of daily walking steps, and very low smoking rates, proving that quality protein is absolutely not the enemy of a long life. Section 3. Optimizing your metabolic engine. So let's transition down to the microscopic level to figure out how to avoid the root causes of chronic conditions like fatty liver disease, type 2 diabetes, and obesity. Here's a crucial, honestly kind of terrifying truth. Your blood sugar can appear completely normal for 15 to 20 years despite a high sugar diet. Why? Because your body is pumping out massive amounts of insulin to aggressively force that sugar out of your blood. By the time your blood sugar finally goes up, which, by the way, is what doctors traditionally look at with A1C tests, the damage is already done. The true early indicator you need to ask your doctor for is a fasting insulin test. You want this number under 7, ideally under 5. And you achieve this by ruthlessly cutting out hidden industrial starches, your refined breads, pastas, and cereals. And once you lower that insulin, you can unlock this absolute biological superpower, autophagy. Autophagy is your body's internal recycling mechanism. It acts like a cellular cleanup crew, sweeping right through and fixing damaged proteins and clearing out old, dysfunctional mitochondria. The absolute best way to trigger this life-extending renewal process is through regular intermittent fasting or periodic prolonged fasts of around 48 to 72 hours. But obviously, when you do eat, you have to fuel that mitochondrial engine properly. To extract ATP energy from your food, your cellular assembly line requires a very specific mix. B vitamins, coenzyme Q10, trace minerals like zinc and magnesium, and high-quality animal amino acids. Meat provides the exact biochemical fuel your factory needs to run smoothly. On the flip side, you must avoid industrial seed oils like soy, corn, and canola oil. Those literally directly damage and bottleneck your mitochondrial function. Section 4. The power of hormesis. This brings us to a wildly counterintuitive concept. We're exploring the magic of exposing your body to controlled, deliberate stress to basically force it to adapt, get stronger, and survive longer. The scientific term for this is hormesis. You literally cannot reach a high echelon of health while living in a perfectly sterile, comfortable bubble. Hormesis is the process of applying a short, intense burst of stress to the body and then stepping back to let it recover. The stress breaks you down slightly, and your body overcompensates by building you back way stronger and more resilient than you were before. So how do you actually do this? Well, here is exactly how you induce hormesis in your daily life. You might start with heat therapy, like a sauna or a hot jacuzzi, which mimics the cardiovascular benefits of exercise while you're literally just sitting there. Alternatively, cold exposure, such as a quick cold plunge or a freezing shower, forces your body to urgently regulate temperature, turning on ancient survival genes. For those pushing their physical limits, hypoxia training, using a restricted oxygen mask, simulates high altitude, which forces your body to build new capillaries and bigger red blood cells. And finally, don't underestimate the power of the sun. Getting sensible UV exposure without burning is a vital biological stressor that triggers serious adaptation. Speaking of the sun, that leads directly to this target number, 60 to 80. If you truly want to bulletproof your immune system and maximize your lifespan, you need your vitamin D blood levels sitting right between 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. Most modern humans stay inside all day and are drastically deficient, completely missing out on this foundational hormone's protective benefits. But hey, physical stress isn't the only stress we face. Social connection is a massive factor in longevity too. Extreme loneliness or the tragic loss of a loved one can cause something called broken heart syndrome. This emotional devastation is so intensely stressful on human biology that it can spike a person's heart attack risk by up to 2,000% in the first week. 2,000%. This is exactly why building up your physical fitness reserve is so mandatory. It gives you the biological buffer required to survive inevitable emotional traumas. Section 5. Mastering sleep and muscle. Let's move to our final pillar and see how daily lifestyle adjustments in sleep and muscle recovery ultimately cement our longevity. Here is an immediate hack you can start today. Think of it as free metformin. Metformin is a really popular diabetes drug used to lower blood sugar. But simply taking a brisk walk right after a meal does the exact same thing completely organically. The muscle contraction naturally pulls the sugar right out of your bloodstream to be used as energy, lowering your insulin spikes without a single pharmaceutical side effect. To recover from your day, you need the ultimate sleep environment. Because without deep sleep, brain detoxification simply does not happen. First, drop your bedroom temperature to between 62 and 68 degrees. A cooler core temperature accelerates your entry into delta wave deep sleep. Take magnesium glycinate an hour before bed to actively calm your muscles and lower cortisol. Crucially, reset your circadian clock by getting morning sunlight in your eyes for 20 minutes. It hits a specific 480 nanometer wavelength of blue light that wakes your brain up naturally.
Then, block out the artificial blue light from screens at night with blue blocker glasses so your natural sleep pressure can actually build.
When your lifestyle actually aligns like this, you can turn on specific genetics, like the FOXO3 longevity gene. This gene is highly expressed in Japanese centenarians, but it's not just pure luck. It's activated by behavior. You can force this gene to turn on through intermittent fasting, high-intensity interval training, and consuming rich phytonutrients like green tea, curcumin, and sugar-free dark chocolate. It also thrives when you supply it with complete B vitamins from red meat or liver, and by keeping your carbs low enough that your body runs cleanly on ketones.
Finally, as we age, we face the massive threat of sarcopenia, which is the dangerous, age-related loss of muscle mass. When you lose your muscle, your health rapidly goes down the drain. Maintaining it requires intense resistance training backed by high-quality red meat protein. For both men and women, this requires healthy testosterone levels, which means eating zinc-rich foods like oysters, getting pristine sleep, and consuming adequate dietary cholesterol to serve as the building blocks for those vital hormones. And this brilliantly illustrates the whole point of our explainer today. We have the data from the centenarians, and we know exactly how to use hormesis and sleep to our advantage. So the choice is yours. Are you content waiting for a prescription to merely manage a disease? Or will you take action today to build an unbreakable fitness reserve? A 100-year health span isn't a biological lottery ticket. It's an engineering problem. So how are you going to build yours?